Welcome to the Pete the Planner show. There goes the neighborhood. First show on the old IBJ Media Podcast Network. I'm Peter Dunn, Pete the Planner. We have a lot to catch you up on if this is your very first show. We have a lot of regulars that have been here forever. And of course, my co-host Kristen Ahlenius, Damian Dunn. Hey guys, we have an intro now. How about that?
That was a pleasant surprise. I liked that.
Pete, the amount of hair you had in a couple of those clips was staggering.
Let's not do that. For those that don't know, this is a personal finance show, but I'm just going to get this out of the way now. It's a super weird show. and it's not because of Kristen and Dame. If you've read my column on the IBJ, I'm a weirdo, and I'm okay with that. But the show has been going for 15 years now in some capacity, and we now join the IBJ Podcast Network. We have a lot of things to catch people up on who are listening for the first time, but here's how the show works. This is a weird thing. It's a show within a show, kind of within a show.
Yeah.
What we do on our podcast is we actually record our syndicated radio show that then goes out to all our radio affiliates. But that's within the show. And then like what's happening now isn't on the radio. This is the podcast. So we do messing around, do radio, mess around, radio, mess around, radio, mess around, radio, mess around. That's the show. Is that, Dame, does that capture it?
That's about as succinct as I think you could have put it.
Other elements to consider here. Damian Dunn, same last name as me. We are not related.
No.
Apparently.
He has asked me to take a 23andMe. I refuse because I feel like it's setting me up to be arrested for a crime I've not committed. Kristen Ahlenius, which is an incredibly difficult name to pronounce if you've seen it for the first time, is on the show as well. We are all co-workers at Your Moneyline. I'm the CEO. They're on the advice team, and we help people their financial lives all the time. What doesn't happen on this show is we don't sell anything. We're not asking you to call us. Don't call us. The most you can do is join in on the live stream, which is at youtube.com/Pete the Planner, Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern. And we've got an incredible community that joins us every week. And they're all saying hello now. And we sort of just pop through them. We got Jameson, of course. Quincy pops in from time to time. We always appreciate that. Chris is an OG. He's been around for a long time. Andy's a financial expert. She joins us and makes sure that we're on point. Big Rick Swink's a legend, and so on and so forth. That's how the show works. Kristen is a certified financial planning practitioner, meaning a CFP, and so is Dame. Mm-hmm. And I don't know my role. Dame, it's also important to say that we don't give investment advice per se, right?
Yeah, not even per se. We don't give specific investment advice. If you are tuning into the show to listen for the latest and greatest stock tips, you're going to be disappointed.
And that's okay, right? So we're excited. We do one topic every week. It is Valentine's Day today. Kristen, this is to say that we're going to talk about Netflix and chill and split the bill. But we probably won't talk about Netflix and chill.
No. Probably not, no. Hopefully we stick to the personal finance aspect of the conversation.
Dame, the first time Netflix and chill came into the parlance, as an older guy like me, you catch wind of it, but you're not in the moment. You people are talking about it a lot, but you catch it from whatever, because we're old and we're out of touch. So I heard it one day, and the next day I had a speaking gig, and I brought it up at the speaking gig. Little did I know, because I'm an out of touch older man, it's actually a euphemism for touching.
Yeah, aggressive hugging.
Right?
Yeah.
So Kristen, needless to say, some eyebrows went up, and I will say Netflix and chill today has actually devolved into you're just hanging out.
Has it?
Well, it is. I'm 47 years old. I've been married for 25 years. Just hanging out.
Yeah.
I'm skipping movies. Anyway, happy Valentine's Day, Kristen.
Oh, thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to you.
Kristen, the topic today is apropos, given one of your side gigs. Tell us why. You are a professor at Texas University. And what is your class?
Yeah, I teach a class called Life, Love, and Money in their School of Financial Planning.
Life, love, and money. So you're not teaching students how to share their finances with others per se. You're teaching future people in the financial industry how to talk about life, love, and money.
Yeah, so I have a mixture of students actually. The class is open to anyone within the university. So students who maybe aren't necessarily pursuing careers in financial planning or financial counseling can take the class. But for those who are seeking their degree in financial planning, they absolutely are taking this class. I have a mix of about 50-50.
Great. Sounds good. You guys ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Is anything? I will get housekeeping throughout the show. We do weird stuff. I'll have to explain the outro at some point because it's a little confusing, but we'll get there. Let's do the show. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Ready?
And 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. Here's how the show works. You email us at askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete@petetheplanner.com. And here's what happens. We may answer your phone call on the air. We may not answer your phone call on the air. And by that, I mean, we don't take phone calls on the air. All right. So joining me as always, Kristen, Dame, hello.
Hello.
Good day.
We're recording this show on Valentine's Day.
Indeed.
And so it's through that lens that I want to dedicate the entire show to lovers. Okay, it's weird. We got an email that's perfect for this. Hey, Pete Dunn. I think Kristen might be onto something with this one. The emailer writes, longtime listener, first-time emailer. My partner and I have been together for a few years, and things are great. We split expenses pretty evenly and feel like our system works for us. Time out.
Granted.
Dame, what I love about this is I feel like it works for us. There's so many different ways to run a financial life that I'm generally okay with that unless it actually doesn't work for them and they just think it works for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a loaded phrase that we're using there, and hopefully we'll get to some details.
I haven't read this email.
That surprises no one.
So new listeners, just know this is the show prep happens in the moment. We know we should probably be having a few more conversations about money, but we don't really experience any financial conflict. But here's the thing. Every time someone finds out that we don't have joint accounts, they act like we're doing it all wrong. We've heard everything from that's not real commitment to you're basically roommates. It's unbelievable the opinions others have about our financial life, but I admit it's gotten in my head. But we're not against the idea of combining finances, but we also don't feel like what we're doing is wrong. Italicized. Kristen, I love when an emailer uses the fancy fonts such as italices. That said, we're not naive enough to think we have all the answers, so we wanted to hear your take. Are joint accounts really the gold standard for financial harmony? Are we setting ourselves up for problems down the road, or is this just one of those do what works for you situations? Would love your expert opinion. Kristen, you are a professor of love and money. Where shall we begin?
You know, something that sticks out to me in this email, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the three of us have been doing this for a long time, is the phrase, we split expenses pretty evenly. I don't know about that.
Okay, so you're saying your BS detector's going off. Mm-hmm. We split it pretty evenly. It seems like there's just a little too much give in that statement.
Yeah, and also there's a huge difference between what is equitable and what is equal. And if we're not having conversations about it, do we know that this is equitable? And I think Damian in particular can attest, what we tend to see is 5-10 years down the road, when we didn't have that conversation about the difference between those two words, then there's financial conflict.
Dame?
She's not wrong. If you're a new listener, get to that. I mean, just get used to it. She's going to be right most of the time, unless we're talking about Xerox, things like that.
Oh.
And movies.
Yeah. So there is a huge gulf between the way that one couple can manage their money and another couple can manage their money, and even use similar phrases and what they actually mean for that particular relationship. Kristen mentioned a very interesting concept that I think we're probably going to unpack a little bit: the difference between equal and equitable, because again, there's not necessarily one right answer for that question, or that problem may present itself inside of somebody's relationship. The key that we're going to end up coming back to time and time again during this conversation is the amount of communication and the quality of communication that the two people are having. Because if you can talk through these things at a meaningful level and you're both on the same page on how you want to handle your finances, you can make almost anything work, in my opinion. The key is that everybody understands the ground rules, everybody plays by the ground rules, and that communication stays constant.
I'm getting that problematic feeling that I get from time to time on this show where I feel like I should call Mrs. Planner live on the air and see if it's really working out for her.
Wouldn't recommend it.
Here's the thing. We're going on a date tonight for the first time in a long time for Valentine's Day because we're just very busy with the kids and whatnot. So I don't really want to ruin that. So I'm probably not going to get her on the air without asking her.
How's the menu look?
Okay, great. I've run it through ChatGPT and it's made selections for me based on my health and nutritional preferences. Let me say this. Kristen, I think a big part of this are the levers or the elements of a relationship. And here's what that might sound like. How many incomes are in the household? Mm-hmm. How different are the incomes? What is the background from your adolescence of how whoever raised you, how they ran their money? How long were you an adult prior to getting married, and what baggage did you bring into the relationship? I think a lot of those things determine how to set up your finances. And in full disclosure, I'll disclose mine, and you guys feel free to disclose yours if you want or not. I've been married for 25 years, and we got married when we were 22. So we were broke together, and we're a little less broke now, and we run our lives that way. So, Kristen, how should those things, as a professor in this stuff, impact how you set it up?
Yeah, I think one of the phrases you said in there that is so key, that is often overlooked, is how you were raised. To think about these types of conversations, what you saw. So a member of our team long ago said that for most of us, what we know about personal finance is more often caught, not taught. And so when you grow up in different environments, then the people that are close to you, this doesn't even have to be specific to your romantic relationships, though that's what we're talking about today. You likely weren't raised by the same people, unless we're talking about your sibling relationships. And that really impacts the way we think, the way we feel, the way we behave about our personal finances. And that's why it's so important to talk about it.
So not only does the environment matter a ton for how we view money, but we're all wired a little bit differently too. So the emotional attachments that we have around money are going to be incredibly determining on not only how we view money, but how we react to money and financial stresses as well. So we've all got our own natural proclivities for how we feel and react around money, but then we also are subject to the environments that we're placed in from birth, essentially, and how we're brought up and raised around it as well. And all of these things come together to make us who we are in this particular category.
Kristen, you brought up a point that I don't think couples spend enough time on, which is you were raised by different people. And I know it often turns into jokes in a relationship of like, your dad's this way and my mom's this way. And that becomes a thing. But when it comes to money, like an hour-long conversation when a relationship decides it's going to have some permanence around, here's how it was when I grew up, here, like a purposeful, not an accidental conversation, like just so you know what you're dealing with. Because what we've learned here, at least where we all work, we did a project called Money Vibe, where we can sort of detect how a person thinks, feels, and behaves with money in different capacities. Kristen, if I think different than I feel, different than I behave, and then my partner thinks different than that, feels different than that, behaves different than that, that's not the nicest recipe, right?
No, it's definitely not. And that's why that communication piece is just so important.
All right, let's do this. We're going to calm down. Dame's we start talking about relationships. Dame's on Match.com right now, just in case. That's not true. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back after the break. It's the love episode. It's the, hey, baby, let's stay together episode of the Pete the Planner Show. You can always watch this live on Fridays, 10 a.m. on YouTube. We'll be back right after this. I'm Pete the Planner. I feel calmer today. I don't know why. I feel, we often said when we knew we were going to make this jump to the IBJ Media Podcast Network that we were like, hey, tone can be exactly the same. I'm dialed back a hair today. Doesn't it feel that way?
Yes.
I feel like I'm on my best behavior and I'm not comfortable.
Yeah, I feel like you're not even taking full advantage of the softballs I throw you every once in a while.
I know. I had a couple great jokes that I would be nervous about prior to being on this network. I don't want the email after the show, the dreaded, okay, we pushed it a little bit too far.
You're the only one that gets those emails. So
a little bit more background on people. We want to do a little quick, what people should know about you as listeners of the show, catch new people up there. I'll start just for some flavor, give you guys, buy yourself some time. I broadcast out of my studio in our offices on the north side of Indy. And married 25 years. I got 2 teenage kids. And so I talk about that a lot. My weekends are basically going to soccer matches all over the freaking place. And it's great. And it sucks. Dame?
This is why I think that we need to take a 23andMe because our lives are very, very similar.
Yeah.
I've been married 22 years at this point. Well, will be 22 years this year. I broadcast from Northeast Indiana in a literal pole barn. Sure, it may look like a fancy office behind me, but it's a pole barn. Pete and I have a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences in our lives as well. A couple things that are the same, though. I have 2 kids as well. We travel to swim events all over the state. So we're traveling to beautiful Franklin, Indiana this weekend.
The Aqua Duns, as we call them.
Sure.
Kristen, what do people need to know about you other than pretty soon you will own a donkey purchased for you by the show? 2 donkeys. I'm sorry. Pete and Dame, the jackasses that will be on your little farm.
Correct. Yes. So I broadcast from my home in North Central Indiana. And as you just mentioned, the goal is to purchase what one might call a hobby farm. That's been a goal of my partner and I for a couple of years now. We've been on the hunt. If you know anything about trying to find a place like that, it's very, very difficult in the current environment. And you'll hear us talk about my dogs probably more than anything else. I have 2 golden retrievers and I'm obsessed with them. So,
all right. That's what people need to know right now. Let's get back to the show in 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show. Hope everyone had a good weekend. I do mean that. It seemed insincere. Kristen, did that seem insincere?
Yeah, it did.
Is it because I changed the voice or just the idea that I'm just wishing general population that they're having a good weekend?
I think it was actually the voice you started with, not the one you switched to.
Hope you're having a good weekend. Anyway, Dame, love and money. That's the topic for today. We're trying to understand, based on this emailer, are they doing it right? They live separate financial lives. Is this correct? Is this what the email said? But is that what they have 2 different? What do they have? They have 2 different checking accounts, right?
Yeah.
I think that they're managing their life together, but the logistics are separate, which is what concerns yours truly.
Okay, full disclosure time. Mrs. Planner and I have a very similar setup to this in the fact that we have separate checking accounts. We have one household income that just sort of then fills the accounts. And we've used to do it a different way. And it's not that the other way didn't work well. Just somehow we found ourselves in this situation and it works fine. And we pretty much split the bills. So did I actually email this in my sleep?
Maybe.
I don't feel like there's a trust issue because we both have access to each other's accounts. Doesn't bother me. But again, we got married when we were 22. And our financial lives as adolescents, being raised by the people we were raised by, were pretty similar. So it kind of works. Kristen, would you sit Mrs. Planner down and tell her that we're doing it wrong?
I would not tell her that you're doing it wrong.
Go ahead and try.
Yeah, I wouldn't. What do you say? Your couch is not comfortable.
It isn't.
No, when I think about this person writing in, they have not, at least it doesn't feel like it based on their language, they've not been together an extremely long amount of time. And I think in your situation, whether it's by communication, circumstances, you're just personality types, it worked for you. But in our work, we see all the time that this approach does not work for the long term. And that's what concerns me is like everything very well, it might be totally fine right now, but you add other variables into this situation and maybe it doesn't.
Dame, the question I've been wanting to ask you is how much does income per person contribute to the dynamics of these situations? If you got two working people or one working person and the delta between the incomes is significant, is this a more difficult scenario?
It certainly can be. It's going to be a pretty unique relationship where if you can have that kind of income disparity and things be split, it goes back to what Kristen was saying in the first segment, was equal versus equitable. If your mortgage is $3,000 a month and somebody's only making net $3,000 a month, asking them to split the mortgage might be a tall task for that relationship. And so we have to try and figure out what is reasonable if this is the way you decide to do it in that relationship. Now, if you just want to split up bills however you want, say one person only makes the income, the other person's a stay-at-home parent or whatever it is, as long as everybody understands the responsibilities in the relationship on what they're going to be asked to do and the responsibilities they have with the income that they are provided with, sounds like a not a great phrase for that, but they've got the responsibilities to spend that money on these things. And if they can do that, great, go for it. But again, the communication, the setup, the follow through is what's most important.
All right. So Eric, a listener watching live on YouTube, says combined checking pays the bills, separate accounts for direct deposits, and a series of tubes move money around each month. Kristen, you and your partner share finances?
Kind of.
Okay. Wait, did you write the email?
I did not write the email. Our situation's kind of unique because we live in my house.
Okay.
So it's like, I don't necessarily feel like it's fair because legally it's my home and my equity.
Oh.
I don't necessarily feel like it's fair to be like contribute to my equity in my home.
Is he paying you rent?
He does not pay me rent.
Okay. Can we just put Dame and I in a conversation here for a second?
Oh my.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Hold on, watch. All right, Dame.
Yeah.
I switched you and Kristen on the last time around. Dame, Kristen, I'm not looking at you. Should he be paying rent? By the way, he is a much stronger individual than me, and so I do have some fear in my heart right now. Dame, what do we think about this?
I mean, it would be reasonable for him to pay some rent, but maybe he's the handyman around the house. I mean, he's providing income in other way or whatever it is, just taking care of the squeaky doors and the leaks here and there.
For what it's worth, I'm currently addicted to a guy on YouTube that just fixes stuff and shows you how to fix stuff in these YouTube shorts. Off the air, I'll tell it to you, it's just become my whole life. His name's Gator, he's from Florida, and he's exactly what you would expect. Dame, it's also possible here with this situation that he handles other expenses that are commiserate with what maybe rent would be. Before we let Kristen talk again, and by let Kristen talk again, I don't mean it in the way that it just sounded, although it clearly is.
Yeah.
Dame, do you think that's likely the case?
Yeah, of course it is. Kristen is a pretty smart cookie. She's not going to put herself in a position where it's not equitable.
All right, boss. What say you?
Yeah, so like for those who've been around, we have a camper. He bought the camper last year. So it's like there are definitely those give and takes where like he's made larger purchases. And like I said, I think that that's important because we are not married and because legally, I don't feel that it's fair to put either of us in a position where like your hard-earned income might not be yours because those protections don't exist. if something were to happen and he were paying me rent, like the equity in the house is mine versus the title to the campers in his name. So I think it's just easier that way.
Kristen, you're an expert at this. You literally teach a class at this at a university. Mm-hmm. What's the average Jill? I was going to go Joe, and then I went to Jill, and then I went with it, and then I explained it. What's the average? I'm getting back to my normal self now. What's the normal Jill to do in this situation? Because that's a clever approach. Your approach is clever. It works. Like it mechanically is neat. What is the average person supposed to do? Because there's a lot of mistakes to be had.
There are a lot of mistakes to be had. And I feel like I'm a broken record, you guys, but it's like you have to talk about it before you make those decisions, before you move in together. If there's a housing situation where one person stands to have more financial gain than the other, you have the conversation about that. If you go to make a large purchase, who does it make sense for this, especially if there's a title involved? Who does it make sense, or does it make sense for one person to buy this over the other? It's that proactive communication.
Yeah, Dame, I never really considered if one person owns the house and the other person pays rent, which is a pretty common thing. It does actually benefit one party more than the other, especially if they're not married.
Sure. Hopefully, as you pointed out earlier, hopefully there are offsetting spending or contributions to the relationship to try and make it a little bit more equitable for both people involved. If there's one person that can afford to have the house, or maybe they had the house prior to the relationship even beginning, it's not their fault to be able to say, all right, this is where we're going to hang out, this is where I live. I think it's reasonable that you kick in a little bit. Maybe it's, just a token amount, if that's what you want to try and do, just to make sure that there's something budgeted for it. That's fine. Again, the communication, making sure everybody understands the ground rules and then follows through on those ground rules.
Kristen, I'm going to ask you a question now, and then we're going to take a break, and it'll give you some time to think about this question. But this is a pressing question that I have.
Oh, boy.
At what point do you literally share an expense where you're Venmoing or Zelle? Or what do you guys have a preferred method of money exchange, or is there not one? Is that the whole point?
Oh, interesting. Do you want me to wait on that?
Well, no, here's the actual question. Let's say you're going to your local authentic Mexican restaurant and you get a chimichanga. Are you, on the way home, are you zelling for chimichanga $13.65? You think about that. We're going to talk about it after the break right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. See.
I mean, that question is actually broader than just a one-on-one relationship, because that sort of thing permeates how you interact with friends, good friends as well. Is it a running tab? Is it you pay me back immediately? And Kristen, you might have better insight into this than I do. I think that might be significantly different from generation to generation.
Oh,
okay. Can we save it for the air?
All right. Yeah.
Don't give anything to the podcast, people.
Yeah.
Sorry, pod people. I'm looking.
Okay, actually, my friend Jim, who stopped by the office today to drop off recording equipment because I've become live stream soccer dad. Have I told you this, right?
No.
So I have a gimbal, like a personal gimbal.
Yeah.
Kristen?
What is a gimbal?
Well, it's a department store in New York. No, a gimbal is like a little gyroscope that works on your phone, so it keeps your phone steady as you go around.
Yes.
You know what it is. Anyway, he stopped and dropped by the gimbal because he owns the gimbal, but I run the live stream. So later this weekend, I will be up in Chicago live streaming to all the parents that couldn't make it the game so they can see their kids, and I may or may not add commentary along the way.
There we go.
It really is an outlet for me. It's not about your son.
No.
It's about my jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And why did I bring this up? Oh, because Gemini, and I don't mean the astrological sign, Jim and I have exchanged $60 Venmo payments back and forth.
Stupid.
Like 3 weeks in a row. I was sending him $60 for something. He was sending me $60. And we were just exchanging $60. I don't even know who won. But what Dame, you're saying is in some situations, people run a tab and settle up. So when we go back on the air here, I want to know how many chimichangas can add up before Kristen is paying her fair share of chimichangas. Right? That's what we'll do.
Okay.
And then we're going to make the case for fully separate financial lives, even though I don't think any of us agree with that.
Okay.
Then we will also say why single people have it good because they don't have to deal with any of this crap.
For sure.
Yes.
This topic often does ignore the single.
Yes.
Yeah, it's tough to share your finances with somebody if you're single.
Yeah. But the good news is it's a party of one. You just, the executive order, just start signing them. Executive order. It's like, this is what I'm doing. I'm having a chimichanga.
And Kristen and I know that anecdotally, that always works out.
We've talked about this on the show. Every Valentine's Day, I end up thinking about Sweetest Day, which is the fake Valentine's Day in the fall. And you guys have the same faces every time I bring this up. You act like you've literally never heard me talk about this.
I've never heard.
Every time I talk about this. Okay, here's the truth.
Prepared.
And when Mrs. Planner and I first started dating in 2000, Kristen, how old were you?
I was in kindergarten.
In 2000, started dating, and there was a guy that she had met that previous summer that sent her a Sweetest Day card in the mail, because this is 2000. We were at college, and I was like, what is this? And so that is actually why my jealousy has brought me to hate Sweetest Day.
You started dating in 2000? I thought you started dating your freshman year.
Oh, you know what? My math's broken. 1996 is when we started dating. Jiminy Christmas. I'm so old, I don't even remember years. It was in the 1900s. We started dating in the 1900s.
There you go. That's better.
In 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show, Love and Money. One of us on this show is an expert at love and money so much that she teaches the students of our country how to love and how to money. And that's Kristen Ahlenius, professor at Texas Tech University. And then I've got the professor of love, full stop, Damian Dunn, also co-hosting today. Kristen, before the break, I asked you, if you're going to go have a chimichanga, on the way home, are you good for it? Are you Venmoing plus tip and tax? How does that work in your shared finances, non-married partner household?
I'm not. We do not send each other any Venmo, PayPal, cash, none of it. We do not do back and forth for expenses.
Okay, well, so Dame, then the answer here is probably, I'm guessing, and let's play a little guessing game. This game is called Let's Guess How Kristen Runs Her Financial Life.
Love this for me.
Okay, I love it for you too. Dame, I'm guessing they kind of just take turns and try to just, with the honor system, even it out. And what do you think?
I think that might be a general approach, but would bet a large sum of money that in the back of her head, Kristen knows about where that balance sheet sits at any given point.
I think that's her unfair advantage because her partner probably does not care, and she does, and it probably leads to just modest conflict. Kristen, what do we got here?
You pretty much nailed it, actually.
Yeah, I know.
He does not care. And I mean, I would say back and forth a decent amount, but also it depends on like if there have been other large expenses. Like if one of us was subject to a Sam's Club run, it's like, okay, then the other's going to pick up a couple extra tabs because that one hurt.
Dame, are you a one checking account household?
Yes. Well, technically we have two. No. We have multiple checking accounts, but they're all joint.
Yeah, we have two.
Point?
Yeah.
We have some individual savings accounts, but almost everything is joint.
Here's ours is interesting. Again, one sort of income source in, 2 accounts. The one she runs, I never spend money off of it. I don't have a debit card. I don't do anything, but my name is on it. Mm-hmm. And the one I run, she doesn't have a debit card or write checks off of it, which checks are, it's a whole other thing. It's from 1900s. Her name is not on it, but not for any good reason, you know? And so I never go into her account. She never goes to my account, and it works perfectly fine. And we never Venmo each other money.
Do you have one login to the account, or if she logs in, can she not see your account?
she cannot see my account, but I can see, but I never go into her. I don't like, I have no idea. I don't
like that.
I was just curious.
Yeah. And I bring this up out of disclosure because the last thing I want is the cobbler with holes in his shoes here, right? Like I tell everyone to do one thing and then I'm doing a separate thing, but it's just whatever works. Kristen, what is the case for fully separate Venmo me for my quesadilla financial lives? What is the case for that? Is there a case for that?
I think generally the three of us would have a hard time making that argument, but I would say that's so tough. I would say blended families at a later age, I could maybe more get on board with that. You have more established financial lives. I could maybe get on board with that argument more than others.
Dame?
I would say in general, second and beyond marriages where you've got established financial lives, there may be some complexity with children or anything like that you've just got, kind of independent financial lives. And you want to share your lives together, but you've got some responsibilities that you just want to keep tabs on top of that. You'll figure everything out together going forward, but you've got things set up and you don't want to bust that up.
We often talk on this show how rules of thumb, especially around money, are incredibly dangerous. Like, because they're not alive, But can we all agree if you're in a fourth marriage, you should not share finances?
Yes.
Okay.
But what if finances are the reason why your other marriages weren't successful?
It's an interesting question.
Which is statistically, because now that as Damian's talking, as I was talking, I'm like, wait a minute, do I full stop? Do I totally take that back when we know that one of the leading causes of conflict in romantic relationships is your personal finances? And depending on whose source you're citing, say half of marriages end in divorce. Does that mean you should actually have more transparency later on in life?
But don't you please, Dan.
No, I was going to say, I think we don't want to make sure we ignore the fact that you could have separate financial lives, but still have transparency.
But I think the problem is people don't. It's almost like a force function. When you're managing your life together, you're forcing those conversations, you're forcing that transparency, versus if you're not managing your lives together, if you don't have that view into how they're spending money, it becomes something you don't talk about. And then before you know it, 5 years down the road, there are problems.
Yeah, being transparent financially takes work, especially if you are trying to live separate financial lives. However, you have to do it to be able to try and make sure that this thing is going to not fall off the rails for such an emotional topic for a lot of people. It's very uncommon for two secure people, and this is one of the attachment, two secure people to end up getting married together. And if that's not the case, then communication becomes even more important in those cases. So whether it's your first marriage or fifth marriage, you're gonna have to figure out what works for you. And I don't just mean, passing conversations. You've got to have these.
Okay. But let's back up here for a second. I believe there are three economic resources. There are three. There's money, there's time, and I believe attention is the third. What you pay attention to and how that shapes your ability to think through it. And it's like a derivative of investing time through that idea. So let's say that's true. This idea and the stat that a 2023 study found that nearly 30% of divorced couples said financial stress played a significant role in their split. Isn't money just a manifestation of a deeper issue? I know people like, we had money problems. Like, did you? Because money's just a resource. We had resource problems. No, I don't know if you had resource problems. You get a relationship problem, and it was manifested through the use of those resources. And I don't say this to make people feel bad or weird, but at some point, we're talking about generic resource misused. It's not about the resource. It's about the relationship itself. Kristen, you're a professor of this, and by the way, I'd be glad to guest a lecture in any of your courses.
Oh my!
But you probably would have to have people sign a form. What do you think about that?
It's really interesting because I was reading this research paper on financial infidelity. And I'm not sure, I was kind of nodding with you, but then when I was thinking about the research, I wasn't sure I agree because, gentlemen, do you want to guess what percentage of couples admitted to committing an act of financial infidelity in a 2021 survey?
Admitted to it.
Admitted to it.
Can you give just a super brief definition? Like an example?
Yep. Just say secrecy and dishonesty over money.
I will say, if we're talking admitted, I will say 60%.
Admitted?
Okay, I'm 30.
Yeah.
43%.
I win. For new listeners, by the way, we always play by Price is Right rules. That's just how it works around here. Dame just lost. I won. Dame, what do you think about this idea that money is just a resource, just like time and attention for me? Do you think that it's just a relationship challenge?
I think it is a resource, but I think if there's not enough of it, it's a big problem. And you can have the best communication in the world, and if you are short on that resource, you are all sorts of in trouble.
All right, Kristen, I'll speak at one of your classes. That's fine.
Right.
That's a terrible idea. All right, let's do this. We're gonna take a break. We got to calm down. Bottom line, here's the distillation of the takeaway here. If you don't share finances with anybody, you're just on your own. You win. You win. Okay, coming up after the break, we got the biggest waste of money of the week. Every week we pick something that is a tremendous waste of money, and these two guess the price. And then the news. All of that's next on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. A little bit more inside baseball for the newbies. Can we call them the newbies? Sure. What do we call these people?
I guess.
These people is always wanted. Like, people love being these people. We have very specific times we have to hit on the radio segments, which is kind of weird. 9 minutes and 22 seconds, 9 minutes and 23 seconds, 9 minutes and 40 seconds, and 9 minutes and 40 seconds. So when you see me give the wrap-up sign to someone, it's not that I'm rude, when in fact, indeed I am. It's that I have to get out so that the radio segment can be done. Right? Is that fair?
Of course.
I never know the length of the segments.
You don't?
No.
Dame, you know them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Fun. Do we miss anything there? I think we got it.
Yeah, we talked about a wide study and 4 segments of 10 minutes or less.
Thinking about getting an email from our friends at the IBJ as to whether this first episode on their network went well or not. It's got like a principal's office feel to me. Like, hey, coming over the loudspeaker at Pike High School in the mid 1990s. Mr. Kirkham, can you please send Peter Dunn down to the office? Thank you. Not an unusual thing.
Yeah.
Dame, how many times were you in the principal's office for a situation?
Of my causing?
In high school. Of your, you were the protagonist.
0.
Kristen?
0.
Non-zero for me. Like,
more than 0.
More than 0. The problem was, I felt like I was a peer to the educators.
And they loved that.
Well, I was running a lunch ring where I would leave campus without permission and then bring lunch back for several teachers. I've never told you about this.
No.
What's the statute of limitations on truancy at a high schoal in the 90s? What do we know?
Well, beyond.
Like, you're good.
So I would go out, and there's like 2 or 3 teachers. I would leave every day because I was a teacher's aide, a student assistant.
Yeah.
Brian Pincus, no, he was there at the time. This is one of my brethren at Pike High School. I would go out. There was this deli right by Pike High School called Reggie's Deli. It's this beautiful, beautiful deli, and I would go there, and I had like a menu in my backpack that I'd go around to certain teachers, and they tell me what they want. I'd buy it all on my debit card because this is the 90s, Dame. This is like the advent of debit cards.
Yeah.
And they would not Venmo me because Venmo at the time was a made-up word. It just sounded like a pharmaceutical. And then they would pay me back. And sometimes I would add a little
Sure.
A yes, sir charge, if you will.
I mean, I was also a student aide in high school. And I mean, I didn't get asked to go buy lunch for any teachers. However, I did have my baseball coach for multiple classes over my career, and my senior year, it wasn't uncommon for him to just toss the keys to his truck to me and say, and this is during normal class, and say, hey, why don't you go take care of a few things out on the baseball field for us for later tonight? And so I would just be able to skip class and drive his truck around.
Kristen, first of all, Dame and I went again to school in the 1900s. Yeah. So none of these experiences for you, you were like, can you claim the Wi-Fi? Like your tasks were different.
Totally different. Yeah, that's true.
I have to admit, because you think about Dame these days think about a moment, how you handled it, and the shame you feel about what you did.
Yeah.
I always feel compelled to out myself on this one because it was pretty rough. We had my last week of high school, somehow, some way, there was a student teacher and a fire alarm went off in the last week of high school. And I'm somehow, some way in her class, but I'm not in her class. I'm like student assisting in her and whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And she's like, all right, everybody out. But no one else was in there. It was just me because I was just, and she was like, everybody out. I was like, you know what? Let's stop it right there. I know how to get out of this place because I've done it now for the last 48 months. And this is, in fact, I'm good. I'm just going to hold. I'm going to stay here. And then I got in trouble, and I should have because I was incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah.
It was really condescending.
Yeah.
But I'm also right. At that point, I kind of knew the egress. But it was still a jerk move. If my kids did that, I would verbally. I can't even say you can't do that anymore, Dame.
No, you can't.
I was smash them, but I wouldn't physically smash them, and I can't verbally smash them. We'd talk about our feelings,
just like we did in the 90s.
Big Rick Swink was running the Ditto machine. Oh, Kristen has no idea.
No idea.
The fumes.
You guys, future episode discussion point, and maybe we should talk about this off the air. Do you guys want to do a fall of the CFPB CFPB episode or not?
I don't know if it's a full episode. I mean, it might be a segment or two. Kristen, I don't know. Maybe you see it differently.
I feel like we could get a full episode out of that.
Maybe it's just this tip. Your credit report is as important as it has ever been in this moment right now because of the different things that are now going to be available to be on your credit again, like the shadow debts around medical debt and these sorts of things. Maybe it's a good topic.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I can be convinced.
You can be convinced?
I can be convinced.
Speaking of, it's now time. Oh, we got to explain this.
Oh.
So when I first started my radio show back in 2009, I had no idea what I was doing. It had a similar feel to now. And I was told you should have what are called benchmarks. Like every show should have a certain moment and a certain thing. And I didn't know what to do in the fourth segment. So I decided to do biggest waste of money of the week, where I'd find some ridiculously priced item. I would talk about it. We'd all giggle. And then there would be the news segment. So BWOM is biggest waste of money. And we've now been doing it for a long time. How long is that? 2009, 16 years? Is that the math?
You said 15 at the top of the show. So
I don't know, man. I'm not a numbers guy. So BWOM, that's what we do. And then Chris and Dame try to guess.
Yes.
And I'm really bad at it.
And she hates being called Chris.
That too.
Or Cricket.
Okay.
I actually favor Cricket over
really?
Chris at this point. Yes.
Kristen.
3, 2, 1. This week's biggest waste of money of the week right here on the Pete the Planner Show is Bang & Olufsen's Bayo Sound 2 Gradient Collection. Bang & Olufsen's Factory 5 is widely known for its excellence in aluminum. Oh, no. Aluminum anodization. And Dame, can I get a quick time out here?
Yes.
I saw the word aluminum, which I know how to pronounce, and it does not challenge me. But then immediately I went to my head and thought about how the British pronounce aluminum. And I got so excited that I mispronounced aluminum. Aluminium. To showcase their talents alongside the launch of a custom ADA service, I think that's how it's pronounced, the Danish firm is releasing 10 gradient editions of its Bayo Sound 2 wireless speaker. Each of the available colors is limited to 10 examples with seamless color transitions from the top to bottom of the conically shaped device, probably conically. They're available through the end of the month exclusively at B&O's flagship stores in Copenhagen, London, New York City, and Seoul. For those watching the live stream, we are pricing a single unit. Dame, how would you describe to the podcast and radio audience what one of these things looks like?
It looks like a metal megaphone with the mouth sitting down.
Jiminy Christmas. Don't play charades with that fella. Kristen, what do these things cost?
Is this just like a Bluetooth speaker?
It is a Bluetooth speaker.
With fancy copy? Okay.
Yes, it's exactly what it is.
Okay. These are $180.
$180 dollars. Dame, you are wincing as though someone is stepping on your feet. What do you think?
Do we have to play by Prices Right rules here? Because I will just take $1 over and win. But do you want me to make it more?
Make a good guess.
Yes, $1,200.
Okay, you guys are both so heinously wrong. $5,700 for a Bluetooth speaker. I have so many $130-ish Bluetooth speakers beating around my house at any given time. $5,700. This is one of those things, if you have it, we judge you. Dame, what's in the news this week?
Let's start with a Valentine story, shall we? Would you
shall.
like to feed your ex to a zoo animal but don't want to wind up on a Netflix documentary? Well, there are plenty of opportunities to do just that. This year, before Valentine's Day, zoos across the country rolled out fundraisers that allow you to get back at your ex in the pettiest way possible.
I like that.
For example, the San Antonio Zoo invites you to name a cockroach, rodent, or a vegetable after your ex that'll be fed to its animals in exchange for a donation. For a $15 donation, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium will let you name a superworm. Now, I have no idea what a superworm is, but if it has a little cape, I'm all in. After your ex, that will end up as lunch for the zoo's sloth bears. Say what you want, but this approach is certainly much faster and cheaper than naming a star after your ex and waiting for it to get swallowed by a black hole.
I haven't had an ex since high school. I didn't wish them well then, or wish them ill then, and I don't wish them ill now. Why are we damning our exes again? Like, what is this? Is this the fabric of society ripping apart, or is this a thing?
All in the name of charity.
Kristen, have you ever thought about it, taking an ex and have it fed to an anteater?
I'm very protective of my people. I actually would be more inclined to do this for like one of my friends and be like, hey, by the way, I named a cockroach after your ex-boyfriend and they fed it to an animal at the zoo.
I told myself I wouldn't talk about the Super Bowl halftime show today. But it applies to this situation. For those that didn't really understand. See, you guys didn't get it. Okay, so here's the thing. It's a beef between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. Okay, that's the thing. Drake used to date Serena Williams. So by having Serena Williams dance during the halftime show, as well as SZA, who also used to date Drake, it was a shot across the bow of you've sort of mistreated and misviewed these women, and now they are here to celebrate your demise together. And which is interesting, sure, neat. But at some point in time, if you're Serena Williams and you're married to someone else, why are you publicly shaming your ex? Like, what do you care? Like, move on. I don't get it. I don't get that part. I get the rest of the thing. I just don't understand why you would do that.
Maybe she just wanted to dance at the Super Bowl.
That's fair. Who doesn't? Kristen, would you dance on stage at the Super Bowl?
Never.
Really? Are you a good dancer?
No.
Dame?
No, I don't think she's a good dancer either.
What else is in the news?
You might be seeing a lot less of President Lincoln's right cheekbone after President Trump's move to nix the penny. I know we've all heard this story, but there's a really interesting fact in here, or stat. I want to get to it. On Sunday, the president issued an executive order directing the Treasury to stop minting 1-cent coins, a practice he called wasteful. The U.S. Mint said it lost $85.3 million, making billions in pennies at 3.7 cents a pop during the last fiscal year. Listen to how much it's gone up in the last few years. 3.07 cents in 2023, 2.7 cents in 2022, and 2.1 cents in 2021. So 3.7 to 2.1 cents over that time period. Nickels. Pete,
Yeah.
do you know how much it costs to mint a nickel?
Kristen, I know, but Kristen?
It must be less then, because there was no executive order about the nickel.
No, it's 15 cents, right?
14 cents to mint a nickel.
What?
I know.
So I'm in support of this, but what I don't understand is then how do you get change? Not that I don't use cash a lot, so I don't need. How does one get change if a penny does not exist?
Well, they still exist. They didn't
They just don't mint
draw them from the U.S. currency in total. They're not making new ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in favor of a complete money makeover for the United States. By the way, get rid of the linen paper that we've got now and move into a more plastic kind, so it's harder to counterfeit as well. And then potentially just do like $1 and $2 coins like other countries around the world.
For new listeners of the show, what you're going to find from time to time is Dame has some established opinions on things that no one else in the world has ever considered. And this is one of those topics. Dame, how about all that wasteful government spending, right?
We're not going to do this to new listeners today.
Okay, what else is in the news?
Oh, let's see. You want to go government stuff, or you want to talk more about personal spending?
Personal spending.
If you use Zelle in the past year to get your buddy back for your share of dinner, and then again to pay the babysitter when you got home, you're in good company. The big bank-owned platform said its payments volume exceeded $1 trillion last year, a sum its general manager told CNBC was, quote, by far the largest one ever moved by peer-to-peer platforms in a single year. To help it get there, the platform's user base grew by 12% to 151 million accounts in 2024.
Yeah, I use Zelle only in certain situations, but I use Venmo all the time. Kristen, do you use Zelle?
I don't have it at all.
Dang.
I've never used Zelle.
It's really big in the Latino community, Zelle. And so based on my son's activities and whatnot, anytime I'm transacting there, I use that instead of Venmo.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
I mean, there's no rhyme or reason why you would necessarily use that versus Venmo, right? I mean, other than it's already tied to your account.
There's a reason, and someone told me the reason, but I don't remember.
Oh.
And so you might think, well, were you listening? I was at the time, but I didn't retain it. But I'll find out.
Yeah.
One more story.
Almost all bouquets put in water or stomped on it in the U.S. This weekend came through Miami International Airport. The lovebirds in the U.S. are projected to splurge a record $2.9 billion in Valentine's Day flowers, according to the National Retail Federation. And basically, customs officers at Miami looked at them all, 90% of them.
Well, thank you for your service, flower sniffers. All right, that's it. That's the show this week. That's the Valentine's Day Spectacular with Professor Kristen Ahlenius. I highly encourage you, if you just listen to the radio show, go watch the show. It's better. You get to see our faces. YouTube. Sending you good vibes. Good vibes are all that's in the budget. I'm Pete the Planner, and this is the Pete the Planner Show. All right, some housekeeping here. When I say good vibes, sending you good vibes because good vibes are all that's in the budget, that's a thing we do here. And the history of that is around 2012, my radio show moved over to WIBC and Radio Indiana and MS. And I felt a lot of pressure in that very first show to have a good show. And my beautiful producer, Matt, was sitting on the booth on the other side. So when I used to actually physically go down to the radio station, I get to that close and I'm like, I got to say something. And I hadn't thought about it beforehand. Kristen, that seems surprising.
Not at all.
And what came out of my mouth was sending you good vibes. Good vibes are all that's in the budget. And I got done. He's like, man, that's really groovy. And like, you gotta know Matt, like he's like the coolest guy in the world. He is incredibly cool. And he was like, that's groovy, man. And I was like, done. Yeah. All right. Booked. And I've said it ever since. Good first show for the IBJ, folks. My column, Love and Money, is also in the IBJ today. So whatever. Nice. Kristen, anything you want to say to the folks, the new folks?
No.
Special recording next week.
Oh, yes. Oh. Tuesday, special recording, 1:30 p.m. Tuesday. Tuesday, 1:30. I've got it marked on all your whatevers. Oh, final thing. At the end of the show, I just say, stay getting money, which is a ridiculous phrase. And it's from a rap lyric that I love. And I love the rap lyric because it's just a ridiculous phrase. It's just like, is it stay getting money? And it's like, yeah, conjugation's off, but I say it anyway. So anyway, in the spirit of that, everyone, stay getting money.